salutations to our fine podcast audience. Welcome to 3Ps in a Pod, episode 208.
Oh, we made it.
And many of you who are really plugged into what's going on around here and pay a lot of
really
attention, plugged in, are going to ask what happened to 207.
Yeah.
Because it's going to sound like
the super fans out
we
there.
skipped 206. I will.
Only if you're binging.
Yeah, but if you're binging.
Last episode we said it was 206, but it was actually
207.
We were informed afterwards.
I'm going to blame Charlie. Can I blame Charlie?
You just have.
You should. It was his mistake.
Charlie's fault.
You just
But
I was given bad information
Yeah,
That's true.
from Charlie.
yeah, that's
Directly.
true.
So
That's true.
I love Charlie.
I think we should blame Sawyer because that episode got interrupted.
That is
It
true.
was-
We'll
it
blame
was
it on
just
Sawyer.
an
It was a team effort, Sawyer and Charlie.
It could have been that Charlie would have gotten it right. I trust Charlie.
Charlie would have gone back in time and told us the correct episode.
But he knew that
Sawyer was
gonna
coming
come in and mess it up.
Team effort, Sawyer and Charlie.
And you know what we know for sure? Sawyer's never going to hear
Never
all
gonna
of this.
listen
And we
to
just
Never. Let's just throw him under the bus. Who cares?
Yes.
But here we are. This is 208. Last week was 207, mistakenly labeled 206. But all that set aside, we have a question. As always, when do we not have questions?
I also think
it would be hard to have these episodes if we didn't have a question.
I also think Jason's giving a lot of thought that people do not just instantly scrub through the first 30 seconds to even hear what we say.
Some people, I think they only listen to the first 30 seconds and then none of that rest that stuff.
Well, I think both are equally possible. But if you're a longtime listener and you just go ahead and hit that positive 30 every time when you start, I can understand it. There are many a podcast I do that to.
I also do that.
I love it when podcasts put the little bookmarks in there
Oh, yeah.
to let you know.
We not doing
we
that.
watch the Holy Post. We all listen to Holy Post. Anything that is not substantial, I am skipping through.
Okay.
So,
It's all substantial.
yeah, I don't know. They do a segment called News of the Butt. I never listen to it.
Oh,
Might be my favorite segment.
Oh my Lord.
Really funny.
There, not for me.
Okay.
This has been the news of the butt.
Watch it. We might get copyrighted.
That is true.
Here we go. Our question for today, though, sort of lengthy, but not too bad. Y'all talked on a podcast recently about how you reap what
Does
you
it
sow.
say y'all or did you
Says
say?
y'all.
I like
Yeah.
that. I like that. I like it said y'all.
I'm reading exactly the way they type it.
All right.
Y'all talked on a podcast recently about how you reap what you sow. It's been on my mind ever since. Growing up, my teen years and on, for quite a while, I did not live a godly life. I wouldn't say I harmed other people. Most of the damage I did to myself. But it was obviously sinning. I understand some, if not all, of the despair I've experienced is a result of choices I've made. I'd like to think, since I've grown close to God, that I've sown mostly good seeds. I guess my question is, will you elaborate on the subject? Can I right my wrongs, quote unquote? Was my life before God wiped clean? Thanks for reading and answering. Smiley emoji.
Thanks for the smiley emoji.
That's right. We appreciate it.
So reaping and sowing is a law, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the way the Bible teaches it, that is just a part of the way the universe works. And it not just in that if you put an apple seed in the ground, you're going to get apples, not oranges. What you sow, you reap. And it does. So then you ask later, can it be wiped clean? It can be. So I think
what you mean by that.
yeah. So let's then go. So that's a law of the universe, sowing and reaping. I believe that.
Mm-hmm.
Then we speak theologically. Can God wipe the eternal part of that clean so that between me and him, there are not consequences? The answer to that is yes. But it doesn't pull the apple seed out of the ground.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it doesn't mean that me and God aren't okay.
So what you're talking about is what I've seen a lot of people, I believe, mistakenly assume is, okay, I sowed a lot of bad seeds, using that analogy, in my early years, but then I wised up, or I came to faith, or I turned it over to God, and now I'm doing much, much better. Why won't God just get rid of all the consequences from my old life, and I don't have to deal with that anymore? is it going to work where all that stuff gets completely turned around? And what I've told people is that ain't how it works. There are consequences that are built into some of the things that we do, not all, but some of the things that we do that you pay for forever, for the rest of your life,
for a long,
life.
long time, it seems, because
it depends though.
It depends on what the thing is, what the natural consequence of that thing is.
That's right.
And but it also is the way of a part of the natural. I mean, part of the way God uses with sowing and reaping. I've said to people for a long time, it took me a while, because of the way I lived early in my life, to get on the positive side of sowing and reaping. I sowed lots of bad seeds, and the harvest of those came due, and they came due longer than I wanted them to, longer than I thought it deserved to come to, because I had already grown closer to God. But all the time they were coming due, I was putting good seeds in the ground while the bad stuff was coming home.
Absolutely.
And over time, the good seed also began to bear fruit in my life.
Yes.
And I live an incredibly blessed life at this point in my life, that I don't really even think about the bad consequences that I thought would go on forever. Some of the consequences I still struggle with. For instance, I haven't made it any, I don't think I've tried to hide the fact that I spent a lot of my early life lying and hiding about what I was doing in my life. So most people don't think that's a big deal. It's Nathan will tell you, I had one child that just couldn't tell the truth for a certain point in his life. And probably more than most parents would have. I got really serious. I would not let that child at one point say words out loud until they wrote them down, and they agreed that what they wrote on the sheet of paper was the absolute truth. Because the reason I was so serious about it is I had lied and hidden for so long that lying and hiding became a part of my character, which is the reaping of that sowing. You sow a lie, you eventually become a liar, and then you just get it ingrained in you that sometimes you lie and there was no need. You weren't trying to protect anything. You just didn't tell the truth. That consequence to the point now that occasionally I'll find myself exaggerating something and I'll go, oh, that wasn't true. I've got to try to fix that. Now, most people say that's at the very end, but that is a consequence that is still working its way through in my life. And I could give you more extreme examples. That's one, that we'll share here. So does it have consequences? It does. Is God mad at me about that still? No.
There you go.
God and I are fine, and He has every good seed I put in the ground, He blesses.
Yes.
And has blessed my life incredibly. But that too is a law. If you want good things in your life, you must not pray for them only. You must be obedient, which is a good seed you put in the ground.
Yeah, I think a lot of the conversation around this or the thought that goes into this is because mistakenly, and I'm not accusing the person who wrote this, I am, but I am accusing me too. I don't think we realize how deep into us we get the idea that God is something that we use to get the life that we want. And what I mean is, for many of us, well, for all of us, the reason we sowed bad seeds is because we thought it would get us the life we wanted, right? I lied because of this, right? I had these sexual encounters because of this. I did this because of this, because I thought it would get me to kind of like, well, it turns out that was all bad and it didn't work. And now I've turned to God, and there's a way in which I'm hoping if I can sow enough of the good seeds, because I even heard it in the question of, can I right my wrongs? Well, you can't right your wrongs.
You cannot.
Those wrongs are wrong, and they're there. And they're there. Jesus can make right what goes forward.
Mm-hmm.
But even in the planting of the good seeds, the goal of everything is for me to be able to interact with God in that moment. I remember I was listening to, I used to lead several of these classes called Alpha. They're opportunities for people who have a lot of questions about belief to go through. And one of the episodes or one of the lessons you go through is about prayer. And there was a Catholic priest who was on there speaking about it. What he said, everything is an opportunity to turn to God in prayer. He said, even lust, even curse words, even everything that pops in your head is an opportunity to turn to God in prayer. And I remember it brought everything up for me of even those wrongs I did in the past and the consequences that come forward. All that really is changing with Jesus in my life is now I can deal with those with him instead of dealing with it the way I would have done before. It is not somehow everything we've already said. It's not somehow that those seeds get ripped out of the ground and now Jesus taking it away. That's what I hope Jesus will do, because I would love it if God would just come in and when we say wipe it clean is just make it like none of that ever happened. In fact, I've even been places, I've probably taught it before, like once you follow Jesus, it'll be like all that stuff, it never even happened. That's not really the point. The point is that now in what is my actual life and the things I would naturally want to hide from other people about my past, or I wish would just go away, I can meet God there. And so sort of like Ed's already said, and I've talked on here before about it, I'm going to talk about it more in a sermon upcoming at this point, it may be already here, but I remember very clearly the day that my pornography addiction came out. My wife found out because she caught me in a moment. That moment was a reckoning for me of a bunch of bad seeds that had come before. But the truth is now, 12, 13, 14 years later, at this point, there are still times those seeds are still here, even in small things like when I have to tell my daughters about this part of my past. And we're having conversations about it. And I'm talking with them, and I can see the looks on their face when they realize that at one point, their dad did something that really hurt their mom. And they have to reckon with, well, what do I do about this guy that I've always thought this way about? And I didn't think he could do something like this. And I didn't think he could be this way. Well, that's a consequence of that seed that happened a long, long time ago. But it was an opportunity for us as a family. It was an opportunity as me as a person to say, I'm going to be honest, which is what God has called me to be. Because as you said, part of any addiction is learning how to hide and spin things to make them look prettier than they are. So I'm going to be honest about this. I'm not only going to do that, I'm going to pray to God and trust that, hey, when the truth is found out, because when you're in any kind of situation, in any sin situation, your thought is when the truth is found out, everyone's going to run from me.
Right.
Everyone's going to turn their back on me. So now I'm going to trust when the truth is found out, it's going to lead me to intimacy. It's going to lead me to trust. It's going to lead to deeper levels of love. Mm-hmm. All of that is me being with God in the mess of the seeds that I had sown that were bad. And so I think that would be my encouragement to you is what Jesus is wanting to do for you. Yes, as we've already said, he's forgiven you. God loves you. God is on your side. If you're planting good seeds, there will be a harvest for those things. Mm-hmm. But even in the harvest you're reaping right now for all those bad things is an opportunity for you to be with God. Yeah. And it is a richer kind of life because it's in reality, not the mess of everything else.
Yeah. It made me think of, and I wanted to address the comment the question asker made of that idea of righting the wrongs. Mm-hmm. I do believe God will right the wrongs, but not necessarily in the way that we often mean when we say that phrase. And here's what I was thinking, and this is a true story. I want to be kind of vague because I haven't asked them permission to share it. So I know a person who in their teens, 20s, would tell you today, I lived a very not God-honoring life. I made choices that were destructive to others and to me, and just was only thinking of myself. as a result of those choices, this person was in a serious accident that was a result of a lot of those choices. Maybe not necessarily directly, but because of the world that they were living in. And they are permanently, physically disabled forever because of that. Okay. So you ask, well, will God right the wrongs? No, he has not righted the wrong of the accident that happened and the physical toll that it has taken on my loved one's body.
Right.
They have lived with this now for decades, and they are now towards the end of their life. And I have watched this person struggle every day with their physical limitations because of that. But I have also seen this same person turn their life over to Jesus and have become a fully sold out, devoted follower of his now for many, many, many decades. And I have seen them mourn and struggle and just suffer. It's suffering. They have suffered because of this period of their life. And yet I can be in their presence and fully experience the grace and peace and strength of Jesus through them because of how they have had to live with this debilitating situation that they've been given now. And at this point, God's not going to heal them. I don't believe God. He could. I don't want. He could heal them. He is not going to. We haven't seen a complete healing on that. But I've seen this life that once was pointed in this direction towards only themselves, now point towards Jesus. And the amount of good that we've seen come out of this person's life is immeasurable.
Right.
And the way that they've affected other people, our family, all the people that are surrounding them. And so when you say, can I right my wrongs? God can bring good out of your wrongs.
Sure.
That's for sure.
Absolutely,
true.
100%.
That's for sure true.
It probably won't look anything like you think it will. And probably will even be better if you trust him with it.
Yeah, I would think if you asked my, particularly the sister that's most responsible for me being a Christian, when she looks at Community Christian, she says Community Christian is a result of my wrongs early in life, that I wanted to create a place that was for, she says, God has allowed you to create a place that's perfect for people like you, who've messed up and need hope that they can get back on track. And I certainly, it's one of the things I thank God for the most.
Yes.
Anyway, that's a really good point to make, Jason. I do think God can bring good out of our wrong, and that's what he wants to do.
And that's a part of what you said. If you keep sowing the good seed, God will bless that good seed, and then you will see a reaping of good things. A good harvest will come in your life. I just always caution people, you don't get to decide what that harvest looks like exactly.
That's right.
It will be good and pleasing and to him. But, and like, I think Nathan's the one that brought this point up, is we spend so much time in this idea of we get to decide what good.
I want to manage outcomes.
I want to manage outcomes.
We really, instead of managing, I want to have an interactive relationship with God, where God says, Ed, this is what, are you willing to do this with me? Are you willing to go, I'm walking this way, will you walk with me? I want to go, where's that road going? And can it go the way I will go with you if you will get me where I want to be?
Well, what I think is interesting is even the language, we said early, you would use the example, if you plant an apple seed, you get apples, right? What I think a lot of us think is if I plant or, I sow obedience, I get a brand new job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What you get is more obedience. I'm serious. What you get is a
right.
greater ability to be obedient. When you sow seeds of God's peace into your life, you get greater peace. There is no formula that is, I sow this thing. What we're really looking for is tit for tat here. Well, what I'm looking for is, God, I gave you a little bit of your thing. Now quid pro quo. Yeah. I did a little bit for you. Now you got to give me a little bit of the thing I want. And what God's saying, and I'm not saying there is a joy in obedience itself. There is a joy in faithfulness itself. There's a joy in when I live simply within my money. It doesn't mean that suddenly now I get blessed with more money. It means suddenly I realize this was all I ever really needed.
Yeah,
and
contentment's a gift in and of itself.
Right. So all of these things, and so I say that to say, if you're planting good seeds now, as Jason and Ed and I've said, you don't get to control what that thing is. I think often we think if I become a blessable kind of person, then God's just going to bless me with all these things. It's not really the point. The point is,
if you do, make sure you don't move to Haiti.
Because
you can become a really faithful, loving, peaceful, patient, kind person in a really terrible economy, and you will have a difficult life no matter how faithful you are.
True.
And I think all of that is warped by we live in so much affluence and so much, we have a picture of what life should be that God never gave to us. We have a picture of everything should be growing and moving up and to the right, and my money should be going this way, and my family should be going this way. That's not really the view of life that the scriptures certainly give us. A faithful, obedient people is that everything moves this direction. What seems to be the greatest blessing of life with God is God.
Yeah. That
the greatest blessing is that I actually have a way to enjoy it. I said to one of my daughters the other day, they said something about what's the point of life, and I said, love God and love people. You say that whole thing, and then I said, here's the easiest way for them to understand, because that's not really what that to them that's what I do. I said the point of God is to become the kind of person that could actually enjoy their life with God, because that's what loving God and loving people is. It's about enjoying God. It's not our tradition of faith, but that's. I think it's in the Westminster Catechism, but that's
the chief aim of man is to enjoy God.
Enjoy God forever. That's really that God has given me this life, and there's so much in this life. Going back to the bad seeds that I sow, it's me really rejecting that the life I have is good enough.
It's why when we've tried to explain to people heaven and Dallas's statement of God will let everyone into heaven who can possibly stand it. Yep. If you don't build the kind of life where you can enjoy God, you won't want to be in heaven.
That's right.
Because he is the chief. He is all of it. He is all of it. He is all of it.
Yes.
So thinking it's your pleasure factory where you finally get everything you want, you'll find out I didn't build the kind of life where I can enjoy God. That's why I think Paul, when he says all these accomplishments he had, and I counted all that as trash. I just count all that as trash. To know Christ.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to, if I can come in this life to know Christ, that would have been worth whatever it took.
Absolutely.
Right. So that's our goal, is I want to become the kind of person who can enjoy this life with God, and all of his commands that are about loving others and loving God and loving myself rightly. All of that's all mixed up together. It is all about when I learn I can enjoy God better when I obey him. That's the hard part for us. We live in a world where if I could enjoy this planet better by taking care of it, everything is a resource for us to exploit, and God becomes a resource for us to exploit. You've got all this stuff. How can I get it from you? If I can get to a point where I just enjoy him and just enjoy being with him, that is a powerful thing. And those good seeds you sow, they will eventually lead you to become that kind of person, but it will take time.
And all of the obedience steps, that's what we mean by sowing seed. Obedience is the seed you sow. And whether it's loving an enemy or forgiving somebody that hurts you, and all of those that don't make sense to us, why it would be a good seed to plant. They're about enjoying God, because that's the kind of being God is. God is a being that has to love his enemies, because frankly, if it weren't for Jesus, all of us are his enemies.
Correct. Correct.
All right. So next week, we're going to talk. We have another clarifying question. A lot of people have been paying attention.
And been confused.
That means they're paying attention.
That's right.
They listened to the words we said, and they said, that made no sense. But they trust us enough to ask a follow-up question.
That's right. So there's a person who has a question that they'd like us to clarify on our discussion several weeks back about caring for the poor.
Okay.
And so we're gonna
We love talking about that, so we'll be happy to talk about it.
Yep. So we're gonna get deep back into the weeds with that topic. So show up next week. And Charlie, what number will it be next week?
209.
209 will be next week.
He's on it. You can't trick Charlie.
You can't trick him now.
I'm trying. But thank you for that. All right. See you next time.